Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Okay, sorry, it took me a couple of minutes to connect. So
Not an issue.
welcome everybody, and thank you for volunteering for this really important pilot study. As Christy, I think, mentioned, I'm Michael Rebell. I'm the chair of the Regents Task Force on Civic Readiness. And Christy just asked me to give you a little background about what our task force is, where it came from, and a little bit of where it's going. So anyway, this involvement of mine, and I think of the state of New York in seriously focusing on civic readiness, really goes back about 15 or 20 years to the CFE litigation. Some of you may have heard of the CFE case. It had to do with, mainly had to do with school funding, and resulted in some substantial increases in funding for school districts throughout the state. But there was another dimension to the case, and that dimension was the care with which the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in our state, really focused on the question of what is the purpose of public education. Although the plaintiffs in the case were interested in getting more money, the court basically said, well, before we can't figure out how much money is needed till we know what we're talking about. What's the money being used for? What's the purpose of education? So they did a lot of analysis. I won't bore you with the details. It was going back in history on what the purpose of education was in the Common School era, but it was also looking at current needs. And the bottom line is that the court defined the right to a sound basic education. That's what our state constitution guarantees to every kid in the state, a meaningful opportunity for a sound basic education. And the court defined sound basic education as being the skills that students need to function productively as civic participants capable of voting and serving on a jury. So that is the essence of the constitutional right that every kid in the state of New York now has. That is their right to get a meaningful opportunity to develop the skills they need to function productively as civic participants capable of voting and serving on a jury. A really profound, powerful statement from the highest court. Now, after this decision came out around 2003, and then a second decision in 2006, not too many people paid attention to that definition. They paid attention to how much money was flowing from the case. But over time, the regents really did focus on what this constitutional guarantee is. And in around 2016, when the regents wrote their ESSA plan to get federal funding, and there were requirements to fill out a lot of details about the state policies in many areas, they focused on this question of civic readiness, civic preparedness, and they did something very significant. Back in 2015, 2016, New York, like most states around the country, defined the outcome goals for education in terms of getting all students college and career ready. That's the basic phrase that most states throughout the country use. But in the ESSA plan, the regents amended that statement of outcome goals, and they changed it to read that the outcome of education in New York State, the goals that we aim for, are to make all students college, career, and civically ready. So that was when they incorporated this constitutional right. And in the ESSA plan, the regents also said that they were going to commit themselves to setting up a task force to help them figure out what exactly civic readiness means and how it can best be implemented in New York State. So that's the background for our task force that was formed about 2.5 years ago. And the task force had 31 members. I think our members are listed in your packets. They are people from all over the state. Most of them are administrators, teachers, people very involved in social studies. But we had a commissioner of jurors. We had a number of really interesting people on the commission. And we really focused intensively, first of all, on defining what is civic readiness? What is this goal that every school should be aiming at to prepare their students? And we came up with this definition that has 4 components that is also in your packets. So I'm not going to go into any detail on it. Suffice it to say, we took a lot of care with this. There was a lot of input. And I think it's fair to say that New York State now has the most substantive, the most complete definition of what civic readiness is of any state in the country. And in addition to coming up with that definition, we focused on the concept of a state seal, a seal of civic readiness that would go on the diplomas of students who met the requirements for the seal. New York is now one of 5 or 6 states that has a seal of civic readiness. Here again, I think that our task force and the follow-up that SED is doing and working with all of you folks to carefully pilot it, to make sure that the conceptual framework that our group came up with on defining the seal, the requirements, trying to make sure that it's something that will be accessible to all students, giving some real substantive content to the capstone, which, as you know, is one of the major potential components for kids getting this seal. Here again, I think New York is really in the forefront of the few states that are seriously looking into these seal opportunities. So this is an exciting venture. You're going to help us pilot it, and a year from now, it's going to go statewide. And we hope that this combination of defining the expectations, giving students an opportunity to do some outstanding work in a variety of ways to earn that seal is really going to make a difference. And I know Christy and her team at SED are going to be putting a lot of effort into watching your efforts at implementing the seal, looking for ways that it can be improved, dealing with any problems that come up. And one aspect of it that I'm particularly interested in, we're going to try to work out a methodology on, is also to look at the resource question. Do all school districts have sufficient resources to really provide a meaningful opportunity to all their kids? That's a bit of a challenge, and we're going to, with your assistance, try to meet that. So that's the introductory overview that Christy asked me to give, and look forward to working with all of you today and in the year to come.
Thank you, Michael. As always, we appreciate your time. So just to follow up on what Michael said, we have gone through your applications and selected you because we believe that you will best represent the diversity, the geographic diversity of New York State, and give us a real sampling of what this looks like in a rural, suburban, and urban neighborhood. And we do want you to stick to your application. Your application was really your self-assessment, and that's your plan. And I will share a copy of that plan that you submitted with your regional coordinator. And we want you to build from that initial assessment that you submitted to the State Education Department. We prefer that you stay small and stay within those parameters. You can always build this 2 years, 3 years out. But for the purposes of our pilot, we're looking for model student samples, model teacher rubrics, and that is going to take time. And we want to really build authentic buy-in. That will also take time. So keep it small. Like I said before, this is about quality, not quantity for us. But as you're going through your school year and you're considering your long-term plan, if there are barriers, we do want to know about those and address those. That will be part of the assessment of this pilot. We also obviously want to celebrate your successes, but everything we put forward to you is our absolute best efforts. But it's all hypothetical. We have no reality check yet. We need some students to tell us what they think and some teachers to let us know what we forgot or what they think really a student should earn more points for or less points for, you know, that all of that is open for discussion with our task force. We really do want to hear honest and open feedback. So we're hoping that we're building a really trusting partnership by kicking this off. So our next steps will be, I will share your applications with your regional coordinators. They will reach out and set up a meeting with you, either individually or as a group. And then I'll convene with the regional coordinators over the summer for some trainings, and we'll make sure that we're all following the same rigor and consistency. And you'll see when you meet each other and learn more about your applications, you're very diverse. This is going to look the same. It's not meant to look the same. That's really the whole point. This is about elevating student choice and voice and empowering your students in your communities. And that won't mean the same things across New York. But we do want the principles and the elements, the 6 proven practices, all of the research that we've done to be something that's evidenced in the work that you produce during the school year. So with that, I've created breakout rooms according to the regions across New York State. And you can feel free to move within these groups and introduce yourself, get to know the people who may be in your region. And you can even move within regions if you'd like to just reach out and see who else might be a part of this pilot. I did share the final list with you of our participants, and I've also shared the list of the regional coordinators. So for those of you in our social studies community, these should seem like very familiar, highly respected names and faces, but I'm thrilled that we all get to be here to get together and talk in a little bit of a smaller group about what we're about to embark on. So with that, I will send you off to your rooms. Please select your rooms. Oh. Let me turn off the recording. If anyone wants to see that again.